Hi, I'm Dylan, and this is Raider Talk. At the start of the school year, the Montgomery High School Broadcasting Program embarked on a new year of projects with our upgraded equipment and facilities. We've been busy with our weekly broadcast, specialty video projects, and conferences. One of our goals for this year was to implement a new initiative for our YouTube lineup. Raider Talk is designed to bring our viewers more in-depth and hard-hitting interviews than a regular broadcast. We aim to highlight the more exciting and hard-hitting stories going on in our district and beyond. Our first installment aims to highlight the amazing opportunities going on in our 10th grade honors English classes and our creative writing classes. Mr. Lawrence Bassett is a local poet and published author who also is a retired high school English teacher from the Williamsport Area School District. In Mr. Bassett's own words, here is his biography. I was born in the small Pennsylvania town just after the Second World War, and after a quintessentially ordinary and uneventful childhood, I grew up, became an English teacher, and moonlighted as an electrician, a stagehand, a motion picture projectionist, a climbing and skiing instructor, a township road worker, an advertising copywriter and creative director, and a public address sports announcer. I eventually retired from teaching high school English in another Pennsylvania town not 50 miles from where I started out. I live and write in Williamsport, PA, surrounded by my wife and 3 cats. Join us in our first Raider Talk episode as we talk with Mr. Lawrence Bassett. Hi guys, I'm Dylan. I'm here with Mr. Larry Bassett from Williamsport. So you're our teacher, our guest teacher right now for our poetry residence. And you've been doing this for quite a bit, I understand, right? The residencies?
I have for about a dozen years.
Okay. So what is your usual routine and how have your previous residencies went?
What I like to do is share some of the stuff that I've written
Mm-hmm.
and then focus on what the writers that I'm working with are writing and try to open up avenues for them to explore in their writing. Maybe refine some of the stuff that they're already doing.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, since you're in the group,
Mm-hmm.
People don't think about writing about places where they've lived
Mm-hmm.
very often. So maybe we'll spend a day thinking about places we've lived, places we visit, and write about that. And what appeals to us about that, or what we hated about that.
All right. So I understand you're a retired teacher from Williamsport.
I am.
And you taught English.
I did.
So you were around poetry for a long time in that sense. And
I have been.
how long have you been retired?
Oh, wow. Come June,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be 17 years.
So you've had 17 years of time to write poetry and stuff like that. How do you like that time, not being a teacher? Like, you don't have to go to school and teach and you have time to write.
That's interesting because I used to write in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a routine where I would get up 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have time to write before I did my stuff for school, before I went to school. And when I first retired,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that kind of structure.
Yeah.
I had all that time to write, and I couldn't write
Mm-hmm.
because there wasn't a particular time of day to sit down and write.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to find a place in my house where I could sit and write, and a time of day that felt right to do my writing. After I fell into that, so maybe, but I don't write every day anymore. I try to write in my journal every day,
Mm-hmm.
but I spend a lot of time starting things and then going back to them later and expanding. So,
All right. So you've been here for 2 classes now at Montgomery due to some weather and stuff like that. What do you think so far of the Montgomery students, how they're handling your residency and all that?
Oh, I think it's wonderful. I think the writers are wonderful. I think they're doing some incredible stuff. Because they are so, their life experiences are so different
Mm-hmm.
from the urban students that I dealt with in Williamsport.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done 2 writing residencies at a Job Corps center where the writers are older
Mm-hmm.
and really urban.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful to get the life experience of a small school like this. And everybody has been super cooperative.
All right. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. So, okay, we all know where we are now, right?
Yeah.
This is called Square Dance for Groundhog Day. Lights longer now, dawns earlier and nights delayed. A later setting sun to light the way to barns, the evening milking, chores. Inside the barn, the heat of animals. Outside, late winter cold, the deep frost settled in. But here at Groundhog Day, halfway to spring, we start to feel the shift. The swing of seasons pass from barn dance arm to arm. The ancient banjoed fiddled reel of happy-footed stars whirling above the frozen fields. Cold winds accordion, the boom and creak of shifting ice on ponds. A hunger moon calls promenades and steps to dancers eager for the season's turn.
Hi guys, I'm here with Mrs. Carpenter, who's the teacher for the 10th grade Honors English and Creative Writing classes. So Mrs. Carpenter, with this residency that we have going on for the poetry unit, how did it come about exactly?
So in the fall I received an email from the Northern Tier Arts Council, and it offered a couple of different opportunities, and one of them was this opportunity to have an artist in residence.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I pass those by, but I saw a name in it that I recognized. It happened to be Larry Bassett, and he happened to have been my 11th grade English teacher.
Okay.
And he was one of my favorites, like top 10 favorite teacher ever. So I thought if I had the opportunity to bring my favorite teacher in to work with my students,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look into this further. So I pursued it a little more, found out what it involved, and went through the necessary avenues to set it up.
All right. Can you give us a little bit of what he was like as a teacher?
Quite honestly, he terrified me. He is the kind of teacher who sets that high expectation where you just don't want to disappoint the person. He brought in so much different material to teach us stuff. We did Hamlet, and somewhere in Hamlet he's quoting popular pop tunes, which is kind of funny when you get to meet him and see him.
Mm-hmm.
Big old man who's kind of explaining Kurosawa and Japanese movies about Hamlet, and it's very weird, but very cool. And he was cool but intimidating. You just didn't want to disappoint him. You didn't want to let him down, and so he just pushed you. I learned so much more as a writer and as a student from him than from almost any other teacher that I had ever encountered.
So we've had Bassett here now for 3 times. What are you thinking so far of him teaching?
I really love having him in my classroom. I love getting to watch you all react to him because he's exactly the same as he was when I had him as a student, when I was your age and he was my teacher. It was very cool to get to watch him and watch him interact with you and watch some of you be in the same awe of him and not want to let him down that I remember as a student.
So recently I've noticed with, especially I'm in creative writing, and with that we've been doing a lot of poetry, and you're pushing poetry now in your honors English class. and poetry is a big thing right now for us at this time of year. Can you explain a little bit why you think poetry is so imperative to kids our age?
I think especially because it relates for me to music,
Mm-hmm.
that it's a good creative outlet. Because somebody is not necessarily going to sit down and spend a long period of time writing a short story,
Mm-hmm.
but you might sit down and write a poem. For me, it's a huge creative outlet, a place where you can break rules, you can play with lines, you can play with a phrase or play on words,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's just a really cool opportunity for students to try different styles, find something they like, and maybe spend a little more time writing than they would otherwise.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's so much more enriching to be able to learn about a subject from someone who has actually had so much experience and so much practice in that subject. And I think being able to learn something like that from someone so engaging and so magnetic and so lively and vibrant is a different element entirely to add to the classroom.
I am so thrilled as to how it's going. I am so impressed and I'm so happy with how full of life he is and how happy he is to be teaching us and giving us advice. And it makes me want to do so much better because he's making me realize things that I didn't know before about literature and poetry. And it's so fulfilling and it makes me so happy.
Thank you for tuning into our first installment of Raider Talk. We hope you take some time to talk to somebody soon.